Welcome to China Elite Politics, a podcast about Chinese Communist Party elite politics and operations, US-China relations, and China-related geopolitics. I'm Larry Ong, Senior Analyst at SinoInsider. This is episode 5 of the podcast. In this episode, I'll briefly go over the political aspect of why Beijing is getting tough on Chinese entrepreneur Jack Ma and his technology companies. Alright, let's begin. On April 10th, PRC State Administration for Market Regulation hit Alibaba with a record 2.8 billion fine for breaking anti-monopoly regulations. The fine was about 4% of Alibaba's domestic annual sales. Chinese Communist Party mouthpiece People's Daily described the punishing of Alibaba as, quote, a kind of love. The party isn't just making a bad joke. After all, the authorities could have fined Alibaba up to 10% of its annual sales in China. Back in 2015, Qualcomm was hit with an 8% fine, or 975 million. Moreover, Beijing could take over the running of Alibaba. This is drastic, but not totally inconceivable. Recent years have seen regulators moving in and taking control of wayward financial companies like Angbang Group and Tomorrow Group. After receiving the fine, Alibaba issued a statement saying that it, quote, would not have achieved our growth without sound government regulation and service. Alibaba also said it was, quote, full of gratitude and respect towards the PRC government and the company's constituencies. On April 12, the People's Bank of China announced that Ant Group's representative had been summoned to a meeting with regulators that day. The central bank noted that the company would restructure under a government-formulated, quote, comprehensive viable rectification plan. Under the plan, Ant would separate its payment platform from its financial holding business. To sell financial products, Ant is required to set up a financial holding company. Also, Ant must establish a personal credit reporting company and apply for a personal credit reporting license to strengthen personal information protection and prevent data abuse. In a statement, Ant pledged to, quote, spare no effort in implementing the rectification plan, ensuring that the operation and growth of our financial-related businesses are fully compliant. Beijing's actions against Ant Group and Alibaba are the latest in a series of events that started in late October 2020. Jack Ma, the founder of both companies, appeared to criticize PRC regulators for stifling innovation through outdated supervision at a financial forum in Shanghai. Days after Ma's speech, the authorities summoned Ant's top 2 executives for a chat. Afterwards, the Shanghai and Hong Kong stock exchanges suspended the company's record 37 billion IPO. The maverick, high-profile Jack Ma subsequently went dark, only resurfacing in late January for 50 seconds in a live-streamed video conference for rural teachers. Many have speculated that Beijing went after Jack Ma and his companies because Ma appeared to challenge the Chinese Communist Party in his October speech. However, a closer examination of Ma's speech suggests that he was engaging in complaints and pleas, and not rebukes and insults. It is more likely that Jack Ma found out that financial regulators were preparing to go after Ant Group before his speech and felt compelled to make a last-ditch appeal at the Shanghai Forum. Ma could be thinking that positive public reaction to his speech would stay in the hands of regulators. Ma thought wrong. Beijing targeted Jack Ma and his companies because they pose problems for the Chinese Communist Party that are ultimately political and threaten the regime's survival. It did not help Ma's case that his political patrons in the party elite also happened to be Xi Jinping's factional rivals and stood to make billions of a successful Ant IPO. We went over some of this in the first episode of the podcast. Before revisiting the factional struggle aspect, let's start with the more obvious political problems posed by Ant Group and Alibaba to the communist regime. First, Beijing is concerned that Alibaba's monopolistic practices will spawn a host of other issues that will eventually become political problems. Alibaba is literally too big to fail, hires hundreds of thousands of workers, and plays a part in supporting and servicing millions of people in China and elsewhere. The company's business tactics like choose 1 out of 2 or 二选一 will only grow its monopoly and expand its already significant financial clout. Alibaba's wealth and role as a massive employer and job creator naturally grants it a degree of political power and ability to talk terms with the PRC government. The Chinese Communist Party cannot abide a situation where it is at the mercy of capital, not the other way around. So Beijing is forcing Alibaba to recognize its rightful standing in the regime and bow down before the party. In late March, Alibaba's Beijing headquarters established a party committee. Wang Hao, the Chaoyang district party secretary who attended the Alibaba party committee founding ceremony, said that the party should, quote, adhere to correct political directions and maintain political integrity. The 2.8 billion fine is another move by Beijing to let Alibaba know who's boss and intimidate other big Chinese companies. On April 13, or 4 days after Alibaba was fined, the State Administration for Market Regulation summoned 34 internet companies for a meeting. Tencent, Baidu, ByteDance, JD.com, Meituan, and others were warned against monopolistic practices like 二选一 and ordered to carry out a month of self-inspections. The government regulator stressed that companies violating anti-monopolistic regulations after the 1-month period will be severely punished. Direct political threat aside, the Chinese Communist Party is also concerned that the market share and monopolistic practices of Jack Ma's companies will create socio-economic problems that will ultimately become a political issue. For instance, Alibaba's policies are forcing some vendors out of business and encouraging others to flood the market with counterfeit goods as they struggle to scrape a profit. Layoffs and underperformance at Alibaba also impacts a sizable portion of China's population given the scale of the company. As we said earlier, Alibaba is too big to fail. Meanwhile, Ant's Alipay has more than 1 billion users in China, and more than 690 million people were invested in Ant's flagship 余额宝 money market mutual fund. Regulators are wary of a situation where many investors pull out of the fund at the same time, and the fund's manager can't sell its underlying assets fast enough. From Beijing's perspective, Ant, Alibaba, and other Chinese internet companies must be regulated and restructured so that the regime can curb politically problematic socio-economic and financial risks associated with monopolies. Second, the Chinese Communist Party is uncomfortable with Ant Group and Alibaba controlling large quantities of Chinese citizens' personal data. Data may be the new oil to tech companies like Alibaba, but for Beijing, it is a matter of political control, surveillance, and regime security. While Beijing can technically access the data of all companies on the mainland through its 2015 national security law, the Communist Party vastly prefers that all personal data stays in its hands and not those of private entities. The party has already taken steps to rectify that problem, including creating a digital currency to ensure that Beijing, and not third-party payment platforms, control transactions and consumer data. Requiring Ant to apply for a personal credit reporting license, which is very rarely issued, is another way for Beijing to resolve the data control problem. The difficulties of obtaining a license may force Ant to share payment data with government-linked and licensed agencies like Beihang if it wants to stay in the credit business. Finally, Beijing is wary about Jack Ma's political alignment and how Xi Jinping's political rivals can take advantage of Ma's business dealings to enrich and empower themselves. Jiang Zicheng, the grandson of Jiang Zemin, helped Jack Ma with Alibaba's listing on the New York Stock Exchange back in 2014. A February 16 Wall Street Journal article found that Jiang Zicheng and other members of the Jiang faction stood to profit immensely from a successful Ant Group IPO in 2020. Xi Jinping would also be concerned about how his factional rivals could leverage Jack Ma's companies and their stake in other entities to undermine Beijing. For instance, an Alibaba-controlled cloud-based brokerage access system played a role in the 2015 financial turbulence in China, an incident that overseas Chinese commentators say was a financial coup against the Xi leadership. Moreover, Alibaba controls media companies like the South China Morning Post in Hong Kong and holds 30% or more of shares in companies like the influential Yichai Media Group and in Weibo. The potential for Xi's factional rivals to sway public opinion against him via Jack Ma's companies means that it is dangerous for the latter to have control over discourse power, or 话语权. The factional struggle problem is an important factor in why Beijing is forcing Alibaba to sell its media assets, as overseas media outlets reported in March. Factional struggle is also a reason why Beijing is forcing Jack Ma's Wuhan University to stop new student enrollments. According to a Financial Times report, high-ranking PRC officials consider Wuhan to be a modern-day Dongling Academy. The Dongling Academy was a powerful Ming Dynasty educational institution that produced members of the so-called Dongling faction who influenced court politics. Despite the serious political problems associated with Jack Ma and his companies, the recent government moves against Ant Group and Alibaba suggest that Beijing is putting on the brakes for now. Xi Jinping knows that Beijing cannot apply overly authoritarian solutions like directly taking over Alibaba or Ant without negative financial and political consequences. Takeovers or other excessive action will frighten investors and shareholders, alarm foreign countries, and ultimately disrupt Chinese society given the too-big-to-fail status of either company. So Beijing settled for large fines and company self-restructuring with government oversight. Meanwhile, The statements from Jack Ma's companies suggest that they are willing to bend the knee to the Chinese Communist Party and not put up a fight. The markets also know that the punishing of Alibaba means that the worst is over for now. On Monday, April 12, Alibaba's shares rose 6.5% on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange and 9.2% on the New York Stock Exchange. Meanwhile, Alibaba Executive Vice Chairman Zhou Cai noted that the fine meant that Beijing acknowledges that, quote, "There's nothing wrong with our fundamental business model as a platform company." Going forward, Jack Ma's companies will almost certainly lose financial clout and market share as they strive to meet government regulations. But what about the man himself? If Ma stays compliant and obedient, he could end up like Wanda Group's Wang Jianling. After a multi-year, debt-fueled global spending spree, Wang started selling off Wanda's assets non-stop starting in 2017 when the authorities ordered him to deleverage, or else. Wanda has since shedded billions in assets, and Wang went from being China's wealthiest man to not even featuring in the top 30 richest list. However, Wang Jianling has escaped being purged, and his company has not been taken over by the government. The same cannot be said of Angbang Insurance Group's Wu Xiaohui and Tomorrow Group's Xiao Jianhua, both of whom did not comply with Beijing. Jack Ma may prefer being less wealthy and safe than rebellious and locked up. That being said, future factional struggle developments in the CCP elite could yet cloud the future of Jack Ma, Ant Group, and Alibaba. To sum it all up, we started by going over Beijing's punishment of Alibaba and Ant Group. We then looked over the political problems that Jack Ma and his companies pose for Xi Jinping. Finally, we assessed the political safety of Ma and his companies at the time of this podcast. Jack Ma and his enterprise may have gotten off the hook for now, but going forward, things are far from certain. That's it for today. If you have found the information and analysis useful, please feel free to share it with others. See you in the next episode.